Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Wes Moore. Thank you for joining us for another night of more sports. I was just checking Twitter again in my phone, make sure there's been no other portal additions to the University of Arkansas. It's been a kind of a wild afternoon with a couple more guys. Jaheim Johnson from Tulane, Hunter Osborne for Virginia. We'll be talking about those guys tonight and talk about Carius Curne. Seems like no matter how many additions Arkansas got today, there was still the disappointment that hit in the gut of Carius Curne going to Ole Miss. Let's get this show started tonight.
All Arkansas, all sports. It's more sports.
So, if you're keeping count, that is 13 players out of the portal, 4 today, 9 previously, 4 more additions today, and from pretty big schools: Michigan, USC, Tulane, and Virginia. So, a couple, I guess, 3 from the Power Four, and then 1 from Tulane that had some good numbers in the AAC. Let's bring in our first guest, Kyle Sutherland from Hog Beat. Kyle, welcome into the show. Oh, we lost your picture for a second, Kyle. I saw
Oh,
earlier, but now you're in black. So
I don't know what happened there.
just hop out for a second, and then you can come back in, and we'll see if that doesn't do the trick. Sometimes with technology, you never, you're at the mercy of technology. And there he is, and you're still in black. That's very
That's
odd.
really weird. That is
I saw
really. Let me
you.
see if I can. Let me see if I can play with this here. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. There we go. All right, sweet. Now we're good.
Was that operator error, or was that?
Yeah. Well, I think it automatically went to my phone because it was set on my iPhone. So I guess it like automatically transferred over.
Hey, that's technology, and sometimes it makes you feel
Yeah.
really old because you do something silly, and you're like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense." Oh, yes, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Let's get started with the news from this morning of Carius Curne, because
Yeah.
I think if there was a jewel in the crown for Arkansas, it was Carius Curne, and we're told they have the resources, and you felt like they were going to go out and get a position of need, a left tackle or right tackle, wherever they wanted to play him, and he would be the guy coming back home from LSU and kind of build on the high school kids that Silverfield got to flip. I felt, and I think a lot of Razorback fans felt, he was going to be the guy that signature signing for Arkansas.
When you talk about star power and the rankings, absolutely, there's no question. I mean, he was the highest one that at least that we have known publicly, or at least that at least that I've heard that had the biggest chance of coming to Arkansas. And when the initial reports came out, I think that I put that out on Friday, either Thursday or Friday of last week, and it was initially January 3rd Razorback or January 3rd Georgia, January 5th Razorbacks. That was the plan. And even though Georgia is a blue blood, a consistent college football playoff team, one of the top teams in the nation every single year, I felt personally, just from talking to my source and just kind of read between the lines, that there was a good chance that he could end up going to the Arkansas visit and committing there. Now, that's not what my source told me straight up, but just I felt like there was a really good chance. Then the paperwork thing happened. And I think that was incredibly detrimental to Arkansas because it gave Frank Wilson, it gave Ole Miss a little bit more chance to work. I'm not really, Frank Wilson got announced as coming. I can't remember exactly when he got officially introduced, but it was like mid-December that he announced that he was going to Ole Miss. And so, gave him a couple more days to work. And I've said this a few different times, multiple times over the past couple of days, really the last 48 hours. Frank Wilson, I think he's the best recruiter in the entire country. But when you give him a little bit extra time and he gets that final visit, there is a very good chance that prospect is not going to leave there unsigned if they really want you.
In this case, it's not the final visit; it's the first visit.
Or right, the first, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right, because he didn't go on any of those. So see, I mean, I'm even getting it twisted up. So yeah, it was initially supposed to be, it was Georgia and Arkansas. When I had initially found out that it was going to be Georgia on the 3rd and Arkansas on the 5th, Ole Miss was not in the picture at that. Now there was some interest just because it was close and you knew Frank Wilson and stuff was going there. But as far as visits, that was not. I personally think that was more so maybe his agent that talked to him about that, and then also to again the Frank like initially, but then once the talks really started picking up, and again Frank Wilson was able to work his magic. Obviously, they had that previous relationship from when Frank was at LSU last year as the running backs coach, and then ultimately the interim coach. But talking about the money, I know that, you know, this has kind of been the biggest area of conversation is, did Arkansas have the money? Yes, Arkansas had the money. Now, I don't know if this was just in conversation or if it was something they said they would actually do, but I was told by my source that they did throw out to him that they could make him certainly the highest paid player on the team, maybe even up there with one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the SEC. Now, you know, whether that would have came to fruition, you know, I don't know. But as far as the money, Arkansas was right there. But I think we just continue to go back to look at the reality of the situation. Arkansas won 2 football games. They finished last in the SEC for the 3rd time in 8 years. Ole Miss is in the semifinal. They're still in the running for a national championship, which is phenomenal, Wes, that they're still in the running for a national championship with all that those players have been through. Which, you know, when it's Lane Kiffin, it doesn't surprise you. That's just who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say, too, that when you think about just the location, I know that he's from Marion, from Arkansas and everything, but he's 4.5, 5 hours away from Fayetteville from where he grew up, as opposed to an hour and a half or so now. And also, I don't know how many people know this, but he's got a 1-year-old son. So he's got, you know, that he wants to be home, like closer to home for. So right now, I know he's in Baton Rouge packing up his stuff and should be back in Oxford in the next 2 days.
This is a case where I believe relationships still matter. You know, sometimes
Absolutely.
when you think of NIL and the money and it's whoever pays the most, but in a case where maybe teams were similar in their offer with Arkansas, I'm sure they knew what Arkansas was willing to offer. We know Ole Miss is right there, if not the same or matched it, or maybe even, who knows, maybe more. But this is a case where being closer to home, a relationship with Frank Wilson, that won out this time, I believe.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that we tend to forget, especially in this age. It's not like these kids just, as I say kids, you know, these young adults, it's not like they just strap on a helmet for 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday and they do some practicing. Like, this is life. Like, being a college, especially now, like that it's a business. Like, it's always been you. I mean, I think you played college. Did you play college basketball? Right?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, like, you've covered sports long enough. I know you were a basketball guy, but you've covered sports long enough to understand being a student athlete, even before NIL, was a full-time job. And you want to be somewhere where you're going to be supported. I'm not saying that Silverfield and co. wouldn't have supported Carius, but he knows who Frank Wilson is. Frank Wilson is, again, I think he's the best recruiter in the country, a relationships guy, and just makes you just feel that kind of welcome that players want to feel. And so I think that is really something that's lost in this NIL age is, yeah, you want to go where you're going to make the most money. And you want, because in a lot of cases, you know, and I don't know Carius's full family, you know, story, but I do know that, you know, he didn't come from a whole lot. So there's a chance that he, like many other athletes, are the provider for some of their family members. Obviously his son and his girlfriend or fiance, you know, his significant other. And so you think about that. Yeah, you want to go where you're valued and where you're wanted, because we've seen a lot of different cases where you might be getting paid a good bit, but is the coaching situation healthy? Is the locker room situation healthy? And I think that's ultimately where he felt the most comfortable. He's also got a really good relationship with Pete Golden.
This is speculation, but your gut feeling, if LSU doesn't have the paperwork snafu, does Arkansas sign him? Do you think that cost them Carius Curne?
I 100%. I've said it on the record multiple times. I 100% think that it was more detriment, that paperwork, that whole situation helping, like, and then ultimately Ole Miss getting that visit, that was more detrimental than going to a blue blood like Georgia and knowing the kind of recruiter that Kirby Smart is, that his staff is. I will take to my grave wholeheartedly that was more detrimental than had he would have gone to Jordan. That was nothing that has been said to me. This is just me kind of putting pieces together. But yes, to answer your question, wholeheartily believe so. And I don't think that after the paperwork situation, you know, Pete Nakos had reported that there was also going to be some Georgia and Missouri visit in the mix. Now, Pete is exceptional. I'm not discrediting his report, but I think that was probably the agent games. And no disrespect to agents doing his job, I'm not hating on it, but I don't think that after the Ole Miss thing came about, I think that the very last visit he would have gone on was Arkansas. I don't think Georgia or Missouri would have happened.
In this 2-week period of the portal, Kyle, it's very important. You want to get that first visit. because many times you can pressure the young man and saying, hey, the offer's here for now, but if you don't commit and you leave and go somewhere else, that offer may not be there. Now, I'm not saying that they would have done that to Carius Curne because he's one of those guys you may want to wait on, but you do want to get that first visit. And then maybe you do get him to commit and to sign and not go on any other visits. Was there a failure in Arkansas's part not to get the first visit? Or in this case, is it the agent or Carius that decided who got the first visit?
That part, it wasn't really clear because the agent does handle that part. And, of course, I was talking to somebody from his camp, but not the agent directly. So that part was a little bit, because that was one of my first questions is, why is Arkansas, not getting a first visit with it being, the homeschool and everything? Because that was one of my first questions that you talked about. I know we talked about on the radio and, just you mentioned it now was, in a lot of cases, I loved how you put it, speed marriage. I mean, that's exactly what it is. You're essentially just going and figuring out, is this where you want to be? And if it is, then you commit. If it's the right situation. If you don't commit, then chances are you're going to get that spot's going to get filled by somebody else. But you're right. In a case like Carius Curne, I mean, I think even now he's the 20th rated top 25 in our on-3 transfer portal, second rated offensive lineman overall. So to me, that's somebody that you wait on. Now, when it's all said and done, is it going to be ultra? Even though I've been pretty impressed with some of the ones that they've signed, particularly on this Tuesday. I still think, and I'll stand by it, that this is just incredible. And I don't know that to use the word detrimental, maybe, but it hurts because you've already got a pretty solid with Kobe Branham and Caden Kittler and all these guys coming back. You got a pretty solid nucleus coming back at your offensive line, but once it clicks with Carius, I mean, he's, according to our national analyst that wrote up his, I said earlier, I think it's Charles Power that did it, but he compares to Jason Peters. And you think about what kind of athlete Jason Peters is, the strength, the durability, played for 20 plus, I think 21 seasons in the NFL. So that tells you what kind of potential he has right there. But Wes, I don't know if I've told you this before, Carius was a receiver in 7th and 8th grade, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. He was a wide receiver. He got bad coaching. And then finally they realized, hey, you're big, you're athletic, you need to play offensive line. So he's incredibly green. Just once it begins to click for him, then it's going to be scary. He's a top 15, top 20 pick. Lance Clark, his head coach from high school at Marion, said top 10, first rounder without debate. There's no question about it once it clicks.
It's funny to hear the comparison of Jason Peters. Always heard the comparison of Sean Andrews because of how athletic he was and from the state of Arkansas. High school, you follow high school coaches and talk to a bunch like I do, and they to a man, they kept saying he's the best, and Sean Andrews out of the state of Arkansas. And that's why it is a gut punch because you lost him once. You thought you had him. He goes to LSU, goes in the portal. Then you're like, all right, now here's the chance to bring him back home to solidify that offensive line. And for Arkansas not to even ever get a visit, it stings. And the portal to me, and I said it today, it's kind of like spring training in baseball because at this point, everybody has hope. And you're hoping to get these players in this 2-week window that are going to make the difference in next season. And he would have been that guy that kind of just solidified the class and gave that eternal hope that the fan base needs out of the portal.
No doubt. And I think that with Silverfield getting those 4 guys on the second day that he was hired, that really gave a lot of hope. And I know, like you said, you talked to, I'm not on the high school beat anymore, so I don't talk to as many high school coaches as I did, previously. But the ones that I have talked to, because that was whenever Pittman was there, obviously I was on the high school beat, and there was just you talk to one coach and they never heard from the Arkansas staff. Then you talk to another one, whether they normally crank out P4 players or not, would hear from them all the time. It was just kind of divided. But now it seems like with this staff that it is a little bit more balanced. You think about Mario Brownlee that came from Prescott to Arkadelphia, got an Arkansas offer. And so it seems like they're really kind of spreading this out throughout the state and doing a much better job to me of evaluating talent. But that's the thing too, is it's just I think that's what hurts the fan base the most was not only did you not get them, you didn't even get a visit. And it wasn't, again, as I said at the top, it wasn't for lack of effort. Like I know they probably wouldn't like me saying this, but I know for a fact that the coaching staff was after the paperwork thing, and then they found out that he was going to Ole Miss. They were scrambling, trying to figure out, hey, what can we do to get him up here? I know on Monday night, right after I got word that it was official, They were working on trying to get a hold of him, working on trying to get a hold of my source. Of course, my source was like, that's the agent's job and all those different things. So they were really trying. I mean, it wasn't for a lack of effort, but ultimately, once the deal was done, there was I don't know that he reached out. I don't know whether Carius, this is at least as of 11:50 last night. So whether he reached out to him or not, I don't know that, but I do know that they tried.
How often do you check your phone for or Twitter or messages just to make sure something's not happening as we speak?
Right now, my guys know, my staff knows that I'm doing this, but I've actually had to make a schedule for my, like, hey, you're on Portal Watch during this time. Like, we'll do 7 to 11 or whatever. But to answer your question, a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how it is. You get 5 minutes behind, especially like on my message boards and things like that, and Twitter. You're 5 minutes behind. You're a day behind. There's no, and I'm heading to Oxford tomorrow for the game, and I'm gonna be pulling over every 30 minutes checking my phone. So
it's funny because I left the radio station about 4:05, and by the time I got home, there were 2 commitments just during that time. It was a wild couple of minutes. Let's talk about those guys.
Yeah.
The 2 most recent commitments for Arkansas: Jaheim Johnson, cornerback from Tulane, had 4 interceptions last year, and I know at least one of the services had him ranked as the 6th best cornerback in the portal. What are your thoughts on Jaheim Johnson?
And, and admittedly, other than just kind of reading through some stuff, I haven't dug extremely deep. But first off, look, you're playing on a college football playoff team, coached by John. Now, I don't know how much John Sumrall had in the secondary or whatever, but nonetheless, you're playing for a really good staff, so you like that. But graded out overall defensive grade 77.1, 76.2 in coverage. That's a shade shy of dang near elite. That's really solid. 834 snaps. As you mentioned, the three interceptions. And so I think that the secondary to me, Wes, I mean, I look right now at the defensive line, and other than Quincy Rhodes, I'm like, oh boy, they got some work. They added a couple more today, but as yesterday on Monday, I was looking at them like, man, they got some serious work to do. But to me, and I know really the entire defense, other than Quincy, there's a whole lot of questions, but you lost the entire secondary that just frankly wasn't very good. It wasn't good at all. And you add a guy like that that's got college football playoff experience, that's been coached by a great staff. So I think I would say, just on paper, I really like the linebacker from Howard. Is it Jaquavian Smith?
Mm-hmm.
I have watched a little film on him, and I've been very impressed with what he's done in the FCS ranks. But I would probably say, I mean, he's maybe my favorite right now. Love Sutton Smith. Love the way he can move.
Yeah.
But Jaheim might have taken that. Christian Harrison, the first one, obviously has incredible pedigree. If he's a fraction of his father's talent, then you'll be in pretty good shape. So, I definitely think Jaheim might be probably up there, at least on paper, maybe the best one they've gotten so far out of the 13.
Playing devil's advocate for just a second, does it concern you that he didn't follow Summerall to Florida, and that maybe, why didn't Summerall want him in Florida?
Yeah, no, that definitely could be it. That's a great point. They could always be a money thing. Maybe they didn't give him what he wanted or something. But yeah, no, I definitely think it's warranted to kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit and ask some questions. I think overall, his film will speak for itself. But no, it's certainly fair to ask that question. I definitely will say that.
And I just say that I don't know the situation in Florida. Maybe they have a bunch of DBs reasonable. And they don't need a Jaheim Johnson there. I just brought that up. The other this afternoon was Hunter Osborne from Virginia, defensive lineman, comes from the state of Alabama, high pedigree. Looks like he's a guy
with Alabama.
Yeah, just needs to get on the field. Apparently, it looks like get the opportunity. And I got to say, he's going to have the opportunity to get on the field if he can show in practice he deserves playing time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was a 4-star from 2024. According to ours on Rivals, 175th player overall. So yeah, all kinds of petty. He reminds me a lot, and I keep talking. I bet my subscribers are sick of me saying Jamonta Waller, because I've been telling them for a month that like this guy is going to be, and I said it on your show earlier, like this guy's going to be a hog. I got pinged earlier today to expect that commitment today, so maybe tomorrow. But I bring Jamonta up because he's kind of in a similar situation to Hunter. Now, I don't know if it's just been injuries or what, but I know Jamonta, he's had injury. He had a foot injury his freshman year that's really he just hasn't bounced back from and really gotten his college career going. So maybe that's the case with the Hunter Osborne, Carlin. That's kind of with his case too from USC. Like, he doesn't have incredible stats, but you think about the fact that Ohio State was in the running in high school. I guess not right now. So not too long ago. So I think that's just the case that, there's still, and you think about it too, the running back, Jasper that they signed, Jasper Parker out of Michigan. Yeah, he doesn't have the stats, but he's also really, really young. And you also played behind two running backs that combined for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns. So I think you also have to look at the situations, but there's plenty that some of these guys have to prove. That's for sure.
There's always naysayers out there, Kyle. And I said today, I was like, if Arkansas would have gotten Jasper Parker or Carlin Jones or Hunter Osborne out of high school,
AJ Hill,
they would have been doing backflips about this. But because they went to USC or Michigan or Alabama and didn't play as a freshman, and how many usually they're so loaded they don't need those kids to play as a freshman or redshirt freshman. Just because they're coming here now, I don't know why you shouldn't be just as excited, because out of high school, these were dudes.
Yeah. I think some of that is PTSD from that, Justice Boone came over from Florida. That didn't really work out. There's so many others that you could point to. Jaheim Singletary was a 5. Arkansas has signed – Trey Biddy and I were talking about this 3 months ago or so. Arkansas has signed 2 5-star corners in, the 21st century, one being Darius Winston in 2009, and then, of course, Jaheim Singletary. I don't know if he was a 5-star portal prospect, but he was out of high school, and neither one of them have panned out really, and even close. I've heard some people talk about how Jaheim Singletary needs to move to safety, and I'm like, man, I don't know. It just hasn't clicked for him. So, I think that a lot of it kind of goes back to that. Not, you think about the Drew Sanderses of the world that you got from a big time program that ended up turning out really well, and there's some of those too. But I think that some of that, some of what you were talking about, is just PTSD. Like, oh, well, they were at this big program, but they weren't wanted there, so they were told to hit the point. Maybe they weren't wanted there because, like you said, there's so many like Marcus Wimberly, the Bauxite native that recently they're committed today to Utah after transferred from Oklahoma. Think about how deep Oklahoma's defensive backfield is. Their secondary defensive backfield. He's in old terms here. So yeah, sometimes they could get asked to leave, but it's not because they're not good. It's just they might think that others fit that. There's so many different scenarios.
Yeah. Well, Landon Jackson worked out pretty good for Arkansas.
Yeah.
Leaving LSU. Couldn't get on the field there.
Yep. 5-star coming out of high. I know that Arkansas was one of his. Of course, Chad Morris had a lot of connections to Pleasant Grove, where he's from, right outside of Texarkana. And he was. I know he visited multiple times. Yeah, like you said, he hardly got on the field at LSU, and then comes to Arkansas and has a great career and gets drafted in the first 75 picks.
13 signed or committed. I guess they're technically signed, or however, whatever term. What are you thinking? What's the number we're looking for out of the portal?
28 to 30, probably. And then think some JUCOs as well. 28 to 30, maybe 31-ish, somewhere around that range.
What are we looking for in the next day or two?
Jamonta Waller is – I keep saying every day. I thought Jamonta Waller was going to be the first one just because, that's when I got word. December 10th was when I had heard from my Auburn side that, hey, this is a guy that's going to, Ron Roberts recruited him, blah, blah, blah. This is a guy that's coming to Arkansas. You can book it. And I still think it's happening 100%, but I'm just like, when in the world is it going to? So I definitely think Jamonta, the Maryland cornerback, Lakai Rowland, who looks really he looks really impressive. I think he had 3 or 4 interceptions this season. And then, I made sure to get the name because I didn't get it right on your shoulder. The Nebraska corner, Malcolm Hartzog. Mm-hmm. That's another one I'm looking at. And then Paul Mubenga, of course. Paul Mubenga, brother of 2026 signee Ben Mubenga. I imagine Ben and Paul would like to try to play in the SEC on the offensive line together. So Paul Mubenga and Jamonta Waller are definitely ones, that I would look at. And again, I know people are going to look up Jamonta Waller. You're going to be like, what in the world? He's played 2 college games in 2 years. But again, just think about the fact that he's had that foot injury. especially for a position like him, when you're asked to play defensive end some. I mean, any position you got to have your foot, but going from linebacker to defensive end, he's doing that, being asked to do so many different things. It just hasn't really come together for him yet. But I think a fresh start with a familiar name and Ron Roberts, and just if he can stay healthy, then Jamonta could be a beast.
We started with Carius Curne, and I want to kind of circle around. They needed tackles. Are there tackles visiting right now or on the way? Because right now you need a left and or right tackle.
Yeah, I know one of the most recent ones was Joseph Hansen from Coastal Carolina. He's had a lot. There's been some. Now I've kind of noticed a trend. Now I know we always kind of joke about this. Anytime I get a follow back, it seems like that they do end up committing. Now it doesn't always be, but I would say the hit rate on that is about 7 to 8, 7 to 8 out of 10. So he recently followed me back on Instagram. So I'm maybe thinking that's I've got his notifications turned on to see if that actually happens. But yeah, that's one. Joseph Hansen from Coastal Carolina. That's off the top of my head. I think Richard Davenport reported that Adam Hawks from Oklahoma State just got there, or Oregon. I think that's the Oregon State.
Oregon State, I think.
Or Oregon State.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think RD reported that this afternoon. So that's another one, and I mean probably pretty decent chance at him. So I think those are probably two that you really zero in on at this point is Hawks and Hansen.
Yep, I was just checking. It is just about an hour there. Yeah, that is correct. I was double checking that off of Twitter. What about quarterbacks? Saw the kid from TJC, the young man from Tyler Junior College was offered. They got to get some more quarterbacks.
No, you said corner or quarter?
Quarterback.
Quarter. Okay, so quarter. So quarterback, yeah, you missed out on Hauser, which I had been kind of hearing that things were trending, with Bielema and those. I'm kind of surprised Bielema didn't throw a little bit of shade. I love Brett, but yeah, I was kind of surprised about that, just since it came down to them in Arkansas. But man, so Wes, I'll be honest with you, I've reached out to a staffer to try to see if I can pick their brain a little bit, and all they're doing is saying, hey, if you say their name to me, I might or might not tell you that's who it is. So that's about the best that I'm getting as far as quarterbacks go right now. I mean, you think about AJ Hill. I think that's going to be a pretty good competition in spring. AJ obviously doesn't have. I think he's got 2 games under his belt, but I know it was UAB and they weren't very. Look, hey, love our guy Alex Mortensen. Glad for him to get that job, but they weren't a very good team this year. But he almost brought them back in that game. He came in because Brendan Lewis got hurt, and he played, I think, a little bit of the first half and the majority of the second. Almost brought him back. They lost by a touchdown.
Yeah.
So he got that.
And should have scored at the end.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that was really good for him to get that kind of experience, and then KJ to get that kind of experience that he had at the back end. So I think that's going to be a really good competition in spring. Really, to me, I mean, you look at just somebody, I think I said it on your show before, you get somebody that obviously can run the football, pass, of course, but somebody that's, pretty decent dual threat, but that takes care of the freaking ball. I mean, that's the biggest thing and it's always going to be, I love what Tim Cramsey said. I mean, every offensive coordinator is thinking this, but he's, I think, the only one that's ever said it. It doesn't matter if it's his second, third, or fourth string. He wants all of his quarterbacks to always be prepared. They're in meetings with them. They try to all stay together at practice and run their reps and all, within reason what they can do. But I think with what they're trying to do, I mean, they're wanting to get somebody that has a consistent pattern of taking care of the football, because that's one thing. He said that I think one of 3 things that will really make he's like, we will not be fumbling. We're not going to be giving away the ball. That's just not something we're going to do. So we'll see.
Yeah, win the turnover battle. Don't have penalties. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. It's hard enough to win.
Just think about what's
costing it.
Right, and that's the thing too. I mean, if this offense cut their turnovers in half, because that's the first thing you look at. If you have never watched the Razorbacks, or at least watched the Razorbacks this year, and you pull up the stat sheet and you're like, oh man, this offense is one of the best in the country. Surely they made a bowl. And then you're like, how in the hell did they win 2 games? It just, it doesn't make any sense. And then you look at the turnover margin, where they were, I think, 100. I've written it so many times. I've got it 123rd out of 136 teams. It's just, you can't do that.
Game over, literally.
Yeah. Yep.
Kyle, thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for carving out some time for us tonight.
Absolutely.
I know it's a busy time with the portal, and I just checked, no news yet. So maybe you can break something later tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my daughter to bed here in a little bit. Hopefully, if it does break, hopefully it's once she's sound asleep and I'm just chilling watching basketball or something. So
yeah, sounds like a good plan. I think we're gonna go watch some SEC basketball. Take care, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Wes. We'll talk to you later, brother. See you.
Go check out Kyle Sutherland, hogbeat.com for all your portal information. I appreciate him for joining us tonight, and I appreciate our friends at Gwatney Buick GMC. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, give them a shot. Gwatney Buick GMC has stepped up to the plate to sponsor more sports. And so I'm asking all of those that like more sports to give them a shot. You know, you don't necessarily have to buy a vehicle from them, but go check them out. Go see what they have to offer at 5700 Landers Road there in North Little Rock. Easy find, easy to get to, great location, and they always have some great deals. Go to the website, GwatneyBuickGMC.com. You can see what they have to offer right now. If you don't want to make the drive, just go to the website and check out all the vehicles that they have. May find a couple of vehicles and call out there and say, hey, I'm coming out. I'm test driving it. They'll be ready and waiting for you at Gwatney Buick GMC. I did see some news. And by the way, if you got a question, a comment, be sure to write it in on the chat room or on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We'll get to some of your questions and comments here in a few seconds. I did see where Malachi Singleton, former Razorback quarterback, went to Purdue, got back in the portal, just committed to Dow Loggins at Appalachian State. So best of luck. I always liked Malachi Singleton. Wonder if that was even not a possibility to come. He wants to play. I mean, he needs snaps. That's why he's going to App State and hoping to win that starting job at Appalachian State and get on the field. Didn't get on the field enough at Purdue this season. Didn't win the starting job and had some mop-up duty and some duty as a backup, but not enough playing time. So he is going to Appalachian State. Let's see here. Here's a question from Jack. How much did he play at LSU? Talking about Carius Curne. Plenty of potential, but what about actual production? He started 5 games for LSU this season, both at left tackle and right tackle. And that's what kind of made him, to me, was that he could go to either side. When you have possibly a left-handed quarterback in KJ Jackson, now your blind side is the right tackle. And so you want a right tackle that's going to take care of your quarterback. And Carius Curne had experience at right tackle. Now, every time I watched him play at LSU, he was at left tackle. And was he awesome? No. Was he good at times? Average, I would say, for most of the time, but you got to realize this is a freshman, a true freshman playing in the SEC. And it was a bad situation at LSU. Their offensive line was down this year, and he was forced to play because of injuries and probably shouldn't have been on the field. I mean, honestly, even as bad as Arkansas's offensive line has been at times, not this season, but at times, you didn't want a true freshman out there. They're not ready for SEC play, but that's how good Carius Curne is. He was able to keep his head above water and play left tackle or right tackle in the SEC as a true freshman. And so I only think this guy's future is just going to build and build and build. So, it's disappointing that Carius Curne is going to Ole Miss and that Arkansas didn't even get a visit out of Carius Curne. But once again, just to reiterate, and I've been told by an agent and guys who are part of this process, they're really hammering home to these guys on a visit that they need to commit right now, because if they leave, they're going to plan B. The school is going to their second choice, third choice, fourth choice, whatever at that position. And when you leave, it's almost like you're not coming here. And if you circle back around, go on another visit or two, and then come back and say, hey, you know what? I think I do like Arkansas. Well, by then, they've moved on to their third, fourth, fifth choice, and they're not waiting on this guy. Now, there are certain guys that you'll wait on, like a Carius Curne, but other guys, you can't wait, because chances are when they go to this other school, they're going to go to that other school. This isn't like recruiting a kid out of high school, and going on 5 official visits and then going back and deciding, what's the best fit for him. There's not time for that. And so when you leave that school without committing, that school is going on to the next best available option, and they're going to try to sign him and spend their money with him and the next guy and the next guy. And so if you do come back, they may not have the money for you. They may have already filled all the positions of need. And so that's why it's so crucial to get that first visit from the guy. And if you see a player visit Arkansas without committing, leaving and not committing, chances are pretty good he's not going to be a Razorback, because he's decided not to take their offer and he's going to go somewhere else and see if they have a offer just as good, or if it's a better situation, or who knows, why he didn't feel like committing. But that's kind of the way this portal works. It's a new era for all of us, and everybody's kind of figuring it out as we go. But especially with this new portal window of just 2 weeks, it is fast, furious. You're on campus, you commit, sign the paperwork, and then they want them to turn around and be back on Friday, because school starts Monday. And I've already been told they're asking these guys that are signing, committing right now to be back in Fayetteville by Friday. Classes start on Monday. That's how quick this is. Now the portal is still open next week, and they'll be still filling out this class next week. But for the guys that they have coming in right now, they're visiting, going back home, packing up their bags, turning around, coming back to Fayetteville to report on Friday, be there this weekend, start school on Monday. Isn't that wild? How crazy this quick turnaround is. But for example, I saw one of the guys. I'm sorry, I wish I could remember who reported it, or I think it was just the player tweeted it. He'll be visiting Arkansas. He was a cornerback that played in the FCS national championship game last night for Montana State, and he tweeted out he's going to be visiting Arkansas. So think of the whirlwind for this young man. He's been going through practice, playing in the quarters, semifinals, last night in the championship game, gets back to Montana State, hopping on a plane, visiting Arkansas. And if he decides to go to Arkansas, he'll hop back on the plane, get his stuff, then come back to Fayetteville and start school on Monday. Pretty wild. It's a messed up system, isn't it? I mean, the 2-week, the calendar, that's where they need to start. The calendar is messed up for NCAA sports, and need to have that window opening a little sooner so that they can get this done, get them enrolled in school, and not have such a crazy turnaround. But there are plenty of problems to discuss with the NCAA. That's just one of them. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow night, plan is to get another one of these new Razorbacks on the show, I believe, tomorrow night. Fingers crossed. I think we have it set up that Malachi Breland, the big offensive lineman that transferred from Memphis, that is already committed to Arkansas. I believe we're going to have Malachi Breland on the show tomorrow. And I've got a couple others that I think we're going to be able to get on the show before they report to Fayetteville and get them on here before sometime this week. So it should be a fast and furious week. We'll continue to follow the portal and update everybody on some of the new additions. And, of course, we'll talk Razorback basketball. Big game tomorrow night against Ole Miss. Chance to go 2-0. Rebels down a little bit this year. Chris Beard doesn't quite have the team that he's happy with right now. They got beaten Norman on Saturday. I think it was 86-70, your final score against Oklahoma. So a chance for Arkansas to go out and get a road victory over Ole Miss and prove to 2-0 before heading back out on the road and playing at Auburn on Saturday. So 2 games on the road this week. Really would love a split. Well, really would love to go 2-0 on the road, but you all know how it is, how difficult it is to win on the road in the SEC. Got a couple of games. In fact, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go watch some SEC games right now and kind of get a scouting report on some of the other teams in the SEC. You get like Florida playing right now, Auburn. So I want to check them out. What did Gary just say? Real quick before we get Gary said, I don't ever want to hear words Carius Curne or Marcus Wimberly in Arkansas and home state ever used in the same sentence again. Well, Gary, what happens if Carius or Marcus gets out to Utah or Ole Miss and just doesn't like it at all, doesn't work out for them, and they get in the portal next year? You wouldn't welcome those guys back home? I know I would, Carius Curne. No doubt about it. Things don't work out at Ole Miss. He's unhappy and decides this isn't the place for me and gets in the portal next year. Bring him to Fayetteville. I have zero problems with it. That's the thing with the portal. When these guys out of high school decide to go somewhere else, don't trash them because they may be unhappy and decide to come back home. And that's when you try to get them. Portal leaves all things open. All right, we'll get out of here. Thank you for the comment, Gary. Thank you for watching. Give me the thumbs up on YouTube. Go if you're on Facebook or Twitter. Go check us out on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube to More Sports, and that way you'll be ready to roll when we do this again tomorrow night. Of course, we'll have more sports for you tomorrow night.
All Arkansas, all sports. It's more sports.